Let's talk about white gel coat. Let's talk about me and the boat. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things. Oh my God, what am I doing with my life? So when you're looking at white and you're buffing it, some people look at a lengthwise shot, 45 degrees, and they think, yeah, that looks really good. I can see detail, I can see reflection. But realistically, you should be able to look straight on. And just like with any colored boat that I've ever done that you may or may not have seen, you should be able to see a nice tight reflection and some detail in the reflection you're looking at. And if you're not, well, just keep going. This was the result of Heavy Cut followed by Perfected EX AC and a little bit of Flagship by Meguiar's. Anyway, just thought I'd show you. Welcome back. All right, now you may or may not remember this boat. You probably don't. I was working on it a while back when this vent decided to spew gasoline for about 4.5 hours. So it's been to the shop. The guys swear up and down that they fixed it. It's safe to work on now. I'm going to get back to this. And what I'd like to point out is there's some staining coming out from underneath the gunnel here. I'm not exactly sure what it's from. I don't care. But there's no need to wash it. I'm going to wet my finger up a little bit. Hold on. So you could clean this. I mean, there's a way to do it, but why? I'm using Super Duty. Pretty much that's going to clean it up. And so, yeah, I don't really have anything left to say. I'm just gonna set the camera up. It's probably going to fall down because I don't have a tripod. It's just basically sitting on the gimbal. Boop. So if you can't see that, I deeply apologize. If you can see that, cool for you. White wool pad doesn't really have to be clean. Why? Because Super Duty. That's a really wobbly pad. I'm not gonna lie. Flip this over and see if it gets better this way. It does not. So you know what that means. I have to put you on pause and go find myself a decent pad. 1 second, please. Hey, look at that. We got one that spins freely, nicely. All right. Assuming that you can see this again. I apologize if you can't. There you go. How's that? Is that all right? And you might get some wind noise because you're literally sitting on top of a rock next to the boatyard and it's higher in elevation and lots of reasons. Anyway, all right, let's get into this, shall we? Why didn't you guys tell me I didn't use enough? So down here, there's a little bit of oxidation in the decals. Not enough where I want to use diesel and basically gravel to grind on it terribly hard, but there are two little pieces of gel coat there. So I just kind of focus it. So let me show you what I mean. Yes, sound effects help. And yeah, I was going a little bit harder on the gold than I was the green, but it needed to happen. So it happened. We've cross-cut. I'm going to do a little bit more cross-cut. As I recall, this boat was rough, and I know, how much Super Duty can a guy use? Why aren't you just wet sanding, Lee? Because it's gross. Ugh.
And here's one more argument against wet sanding. And honestly, I don't have a problem with somebody who wet sands and does a really good job. It's just that to do a really good job, you need lots of stuff. And any good wet sander will tell you, yeah, your kit is huge. I mean, the number of discs you go through, the sander itself, the water that you're going to use, the stuff you're going to use to clean it up, and then you still have to compound all this. So as a mobile detailer, as a mobile detailing business, if I wanted to, I just show up with a buffer, a couple wheels, and a couple bottles of product. And I can put that in a backpack, I can carry it in a little bag, I can pretty much go anywhere I want with one bag, maybe two, and tackle almost any boat that I see. Whereas if I was wet sanding, you might need a little bit bigger bag. So one of the very basic reasons I don't wet sand is because I don't want to carry all that stuff around. I don't want to throw all the sanding discs away. I don't want to deal with sanding through decals, and there is a myriad of reasons why I don't enjoy wet sanding. But I'd like to point out that these decals, well, they're still there. After Super Duty, for the love of God. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this, not because I don't think that it's interesting. I mean, to an OCD detailer, this is way interesting. However, most of you guys on a white boat aren't going to need Super Duty, or you're not going to use Super Duty. You're probably just going to work with Heavy Cut by 3M and Perfected EXAC by 3M to achieve the results that you want to get on a white boat. I am using Super Duty because this boat was neglected for a really long time. And right about here, I taste some.
Ew, took some boat off. This is me spurring a Super Duty pad. Fluffy. Alright, so I'm going to hit my edges real quick, and then I'm going to show you what this looks like. So I'm not going to give you the full rundown because you see over there, all that's going to be rain in a little bit. In fact, I think, yeah, there's the sun right there. That's about to go away. But I can show you some things. So this section right here, right in here, this kind of glossy-ish area. This was done Super Duty Heavy Cut Perfected, and that's about all I could get. This was the reflection that it started with, which doesn't normally seem like, oh, that's going to take a lot, because it does have a shine, right? But to get this took, man, that took a long time. So let's see where we're at here with just Super Duty. Not too bad. And when I say not too bad, you can barely tell the difference between what was done, which is right behind that line, this area right here, and what I just did. Let's look at the reflection on something a little closer. See if I can see anything. Not much. Whatever. So this is just the first step, and the next step is, I'm going to let you go ahead and guess, but it's heavy cut. Heavy cut, well, right there. And this is what I started with. Right. Focus. Thank you. Focus. You can do it. Right there. Just focus. Why would you not? Up. All right. So now I'll flip the pad over. I'll use some heavy cut, and we'll see if we can get some better results, or just results. Okay. So I've got a clean pad here. I'm going to take some heavy cut. I'm using a lot because, well, you saw this boat. She's rough. Spread this out over the section I just did, and no, I don't need to wash it off again just because I use Super Duty. But I will say, you should probably use goggles. Those guys that work with bees, I forget what they're called, besides beekeepers, there's a scientific name, they get stung all the time, and over the years they just get used to it. This stuff, the heavy cut, it bounces off the gunnel, it slings into my eyes all the time. I'm used to it. It doesn't really hurt me all that much. If I get a big glob of compound in my eye, yeah, I'll squint for about a half an hour. If it's really bad, I might rinse it out. You guys would probably think you're going blind. You're not gonna, I don't think, although if you read the instructions and the warnings, you might. So wear goggles, all right? Do as I say, not as I do. Except for when it comes to how it... Words. Okay, just like before, we're going to do the edges first, yeah? Okay, a little cross-cutting. And actually, because this boat's rough, I'll do some slow cross-cutting. Make sure to put a lot of deep cuts into this. Now, I'll speed up just a little bit.
One of the most common questions I'm asked is what speeds that I work at. I promise you, and I do mean promise, that if you stay at around 600 RPM, your finish will be just as good as if you go at 3600 RPM like you see me do here. I do it because I'm on YouTube, and I know that there's two detailers, Simon Cromer and Drake, who can't do this. They can't do it in the sun. They certainly wouldn't show you the results of what they did in the sun, because my guess is it would be swirled to the bejesus. That being said, when you need to go faster, fine. Go faster. Just know that it's dangerous and you're probably going to leave more swirls and more holograms than you ever thought possible. But if you go slow, you have the opportunity to eliminate all the potential for that. You can feel the buffer, you can feel when it's grabby, you can feel when it wants to stop somewhere and work in a certain spot, and you're not running the risk of knocking off any of the accoutrement on the outside of a boat. Not the radar, not the horns, not the antenna cables, not the vent on the side. You're in control. So until you get really good at working a buffer, specifically a rotary buffer, I suggest, in fact I implore you, go slow. I've done videos where I've shown that it really doesn't save time. It's just fun and a neat way for me to show off. That's all it is. There are a whole bunch of things involved, by the way, in going fast like this. Things that I'm not going to tell you on YouTube because, well, that's kind of my bread and butter.
A little bit less boat than last time, but not a bad finish. I'm going to just kind of clean off some of the residue so that when you look at it you might have a better idea of what it looks like, or at least what it's starting to look like. All right, I'm feeling raindrops. This is awesome. There. Sorry about that. I broke my gimbal a couple weeks ago. I'm not exactly sure how, but it's broke. Anyway, so remember, past this is what it looked like before. Okay? And then this was heavy cut, perfected, super duty, all that good stuff. And this was just super duty and heavy cut. So the very next thing that I need to do is take some perfected EXAC. If you want to see what the other side that hasn't been done looks like, there you go. And here's maybe a better indication of the reflection. You can see my power cord at least. That's a good start. I also look for, if you can see colors and detail head on, not at a 45-degree angle, head on. If you're working in light like this, if you're working an overcast day or inside with really crappy fluorescent lights, you don't have much to gauge how intense or how smooth the surface is. If you let me, I'll put you on pause and I'll turn on the flashlight. Got the flashlight on, so if you need to, you can always resort to that. Except for, in this type of light, it's not really indicative of what the surface looks like. It does look like there aren't too many swirls, but I'm guessing if this was a dark room and I turned on a flashlight, you would probably see little stars kind of like that coming off of the reflection. My guess is I can wipe that off. Yeah, okay. So I'm hoping that with a little perfected EXAC, it looks even better. Let's find out, shall we? Yes, let's find out. All right, I'm gonna set you up right about chaw. Put my rag away. I'll leave the flashlight on. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. And because I was using heavy cut and I got it to break down as far as it was gonna go, I can go ahead and use that same side of the pad. A little bit of perfected EXAC. This is an old style perfected bottle, but trust me, I wrote EXAC specifically so that you would know it's EXAC. Using a little bit more than usual, again, nasty boat. Slow your speed down, spread this out.
One thing I'd like to point out while I'm working with the EXAC is that as I'm working it, you'll notice that it's a little bit quicker, and it doesn't maybe appear that I'm working as hard as I did with the heavy cut, and definitely not as hard as I did when I was working with the Super Duty. That's because I'm not. Perfected EXAC is kind of just that. It's the perfected stage. I've already done most of the heavy grunt work with the other two compounds.
I got a novel idea. Let's do our edges first. Okay, a little bit of cross cutting. And now just a little bit faster than before. Whoa, hoppy hop.
Speaking of the hoppy hop, if your buffer starts hopping, there's a ton of ways that you can fix it, and there's no real single reason why it happens. I'm not going to get into it right now, but later on in the video I will show you some interesting things about this boat and when the buffer hops on it and how I go about fixing it. It's kind of interesting. Basically it comes down to frequencies, and I know that sounds really strange, but trust me, I'll explain it all in just a little bit. Also, for the record, I don't want you to use one hand when you're buffing, specifically when you're going fast, but just in general. Again, this is more of that showing off, bravado, ego BS that I was talking about earlier. I mean, what's next? I'm going to use one single finger to hold this buffer? Oh my god, he's doing it. What a douchebag. You might catch me checking over my shoulder, making sure that the camera hasn't fallen over yet. Every once in a while I'd feel a decent gust of wind and I'd think, I wonder if my camera is going to fall over. That's all it is. Also, I'd like to point out that this particular shirt is a Halo Reach shirt. Actually, it's a Halo 3 shirt, one of my favorites. I gave my favorite Halo shirt to Cameron, the girl I was involved with last summer. And I know, I still have a broken heart about it. God, I miss that shirt.
bit, but this is mostly, well, I don't know. Could be the green, could be the gold, could be a combination of the two. Doesn't need to be spurred out. If I wanted to use perfected again or heavy cut, this is ready to go. This side, I'm going to stay just with Super Duty. That's not going to get mixed with the other side. My guess is you kind of want to see what this looks like. So do I. So that's what we're going to go for next. Let's go ahead and wipe this down.
So I just wiped down a boat, and boy are my arms tired.
Alright, let's check it out. That's for my Canadian fans. Alright, I'll get really close. You can actually see the square shape of the LED. Now I'm not saying it's swirl free, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but it looks really, really good. And so when I'm doing this, one of the things that I use as a gauge, this is going to be a little difficult for me just because I'm a weakling, but if I got the buffer up here and I'm working on stuff, difficult, I'm working on stuff, I try to see if I can read the label of the DeWalt. If I can, then I'm doing pretty good. I see color and detail. I also am looking at things in the background, looking at the gravel, looking at the power cord. If I look up, do I see the water tower and the boats behind me? If the answer is yes, then in light like this, I have very little choice but to trust what I'm seeing. Now, it has happened where after doing this type of work, sunlight comes out and you're like, oh, that looks like crap. I will also say that probably 8.5 times out of 10, that's not the case. 8.5 times out of 10, this just looks amazing. And knowing what it looks like in bright light, the other side was done, I know that no big deal. This is probably looking pretty good. So I left a line that I said I was going to erase. I did that for a demonstration, more for me than for you, but I wanted you to be able to see the difference. So there's the section behind this vent, and nothing, and then this. So now I'll take a little perfected EXAC, or maybe even some heavy cut, clear up this line. I don't know how long it sat there, probably over a month. Plus there was a whole bunch of gasoline spewing out here, which took all the color out of the decals. So that'll be the next step. None of this should scare you. Not that black janked up cobalt, not this weird looking chaparral with all the oxidation in the back. I mean, the aluminum boat, that should freak anyone out. But if you want to learn, it's not that hard. It just takes either you showing up or you fly me out. I'll work on your boats for you. Right? I mean, it's not really how I want to do it. I like going home at the end of the night. However, recently somebody jumped out of their truck after I parked in a spot down lake, and he's like, "Hey, are you Lee?" And I was freaking out a little bit. So I'm going through some court battles. You may know about them, or you may not. It doesn't really matter. Instantly I thought process server, and I was kind of freaking out. Turns out his name is Peyton. Him and his family own a jet ski / boat rental place here in Chelan, and he saw my video and he wanted to learn how to do this. So for literally a case of beer, I gave him a day of exercise, a day of training. I'm not saying that you can get away with a case of beer, but Peyton was really cool and he's local, and I don't mind competition. There are enough boats here that if he and I and 3 other people are doing this, we're all going to be just fine. So for right now, while I'm finishing this, why don't you watch a little bit of what Peyton was doing, see what he thought, and watch some of the things that he learned. And if you want a piece of this, if you want to come out, I'll show you. All right?
And this is Peyton. Peyton and his family own Jet Skis Ahoy in Chelan, Washington. They rent jet skis and boats, and he's a really cool guy. He was eager to learn a lot. I mean, a case of beer eager, but still, we covered a lot of things. We did everything from half-ass boat detailing with a cleaner wax and a mix, all the way to heavy cut, followed by perfected, followed by a wax, using everything from the rotary to a dual action with soft foam pads. This boat was a little bit knackered up, had some really big pores in it. But in a very short amount of time, he was able to pick this up, and I think he's going to be doing really well on the next couple of boats that he touches. In fact, this last weekend, he and his girlfriend drove over to Seattle to go buy all the stuff that he still needed in order to tackle boats like this. But in the end, I think he and I both had a great time. He learned a lot. I made a new friend, and it was a really kind of cool experience. Plus, beer. So, there's that. Now, for a guy who's been doing this for a really long time, it's kind of neat to train somebody. And one of the neat things is they get to experience the joy of going, holy cow, I did that. But beyond that, it's fun for me because it's kind of like remote control boat detailing. I tell him what to do, he does it, boat gets shinier. It's really kind of interesting. Yeah, lazy, sure, but interesting nonetheless, and I enjoyed it. It's pretty good, my man.
Can you see the tick on your watch?
Two things working against you. One, it's a curved surface. Two, there are some pretty big pores in the back of this. And that's something that you and I haven't talked too much about. But compared to...
Can you see my hand?
I can't see anything. There's no reflection whatsoever. Even at a weird angle, there's no reflection. It's just ganked. So yeah, going from that to this in under 15 minutes. Next.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when you put a wax on it, especially with the DA. So nice job. So now it's all blended together. The very next step would be to get a stripper. I know, I wish so too. The video would be so much more entertaining. But we need to strip the oils off the gel coat before I apply a wax, otherwise the wax isn't going to last all that long. So before we do that, I've got a section right in here. Now none of this has been touched. There's a scuff line right about here. There's another one down here, a couple things here, some drip lines coming off of this vent. And I think we got close to it, so we probably touched it on this side of it, but we didn't hit right in here. So if you want to see the difference, there's the reflection we got. And a lot of people would say, oh, you just use a cleaner wax. Yeah, you could do that. It wouldn't last very long. This gel coat's super hard. These old Grady Whites tend to have really good gel coat. And even though it's almost 20 some odd years old, the pores are hardly visible at all. In fact, I don't think that I could zoom in at all and show you guys what the pores look like. So let me set you up. I'll work on this section right here. You can see how I go around this. I might consider taking it off unless it's attached on the inside with a hose or something, but I doubt that it is. So if it's not, although it does look like it's caulked in and sealed up. So you know what? I'm just going to tape it off. Lazy boat detailer, I know, but it's what I do. Anyway, so yeah, Peyton turned out to be not a process server. He's just a guy who wanted to learn how to do this. So I will tell you this, Super Duty only works when it's wet. If your pad starts to dry out, you're done. Put more on. Don't try to grind this stuff in after it's dried on. It literally is just like sand. So, bleh. Edges first. And if you see a scratch, you got basically wet sandpaper right here. Fix it, then move on. Well, we're in luck. I see a shadow, that means the sun's kind of out. Let me wipe this down real quick. Let's see what we got. And when I say out, I mean, it's not out. It's just, it's kind of there. But let's see what type of reflection we can get. Oh wait, I was way off. Okay, there we go. Now this is just Super Duty. And here's the reflection that we got while I was just standing there. This is what I'm looking at. Let me zoom you out a little bit. So I'm again looking at the gravel down here in the reflection. I'm looking at the trailer license plate in the reflection. But while I've got a little bit of sun, let's take a look at the section that we did earlier. That's fairly clean. I'm okay with that. It doesn't change from one side to the other as I move the camera back and forth. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Uniformity, clarity, colors back. So that was Super Duty. The next step is going to be, tell me, come on. Yes, heavy cut. Very good. You are paying attention. Let me set you back up here and we'll get you a good view of that, or at least a decent view of that. How's that? So I'm going to flip my pad over. Alright, everything's hit, edges first. cross cut. This is just a little tip, but because the wheel spins clockwise, if you put your tape on wrong, every time you go near it, you're going to pull all your tape off. That sucks. You guys are smart enough to figure it out. The wheel spins like this, don't pull your tape off. There's a way to do it. Alright, cross cutting's done. Let's go for some flat and have some good times. That was Tanya. She likes to try to scare me with the horns of every car she details. You thought Herbert was bad. No. All right, so you might have seen a little hoppiness right in here where the buffer kind of brrr. Every boat, no matter how well it's built, even a Grady White, has some weak spots. The weak spots are where the spanners, bulkheads, whatever it's called, the reinforcing whatever in a boat, just isn't there. So you see the movement? So the buffer has a certain vibration, and as it's moving, that vibration gets picked up as a resonance frequency in the gel coat or in the fiberglass, and so it starts to hop. So I'm gonna simulate what I was doing. Actually, I'm not gonna simulate it. I'm gonna get it to hop. What you're gonna see is I'm gonna change the frequency just a little bit. I might even tell you how I do it, but the hoppiness should stop.
Wouldn't you know it, I wasn't actually able to get this to work. Not this time anyway, but in just a moment, I will be able to.
Okay, I apologize, that didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to. What I do is I change the frequency by wiggling the pad a little bit, or sometimes you'll see me, I'll spin it, and I'll pop off a little bit and put it right back on. If you listen, and I think I did it back, well, when it started hopping, if you listen to that, what you'll hear is it'll be going along, and as soon as I pop it off, it'll go, frequency change. So the resonancy changes. No more hoppy hop. That doesn't fix everything. It just fixes it on certain things, but you have to know what you're dealing with. Time for some perfected EXAC. And I always try to overlap what I've already hit by 2 inches or so. Cross cutting. quite a compound. All right, so what you saw there was that frequency resonance. If you don't listen to your buffer, why should your buffer listen to you? You have to pay attention. Also, you have to try different things. Now, the first couple of times that happened to me, holy crap, was that frustrating. I mean, you're doing everything right, you're going flat, you're smooth, you're consistent, you're using the same product on the same gel coat, the same fiberglass sides. Why is it doing that? It just took a little time to figure it out. I don't remember the first boat that I learned that on, but I think it was a bayliner. Because, you know, bayliner. Again, if it weren't for bayliners, most detailers wouldn't have a job at all. Bayliner got most of America boating because it was affordable and easy to get into. God bless them. But that's what you have to do. You have to pay attention to your buffer, learn why it's doing the things that it's doing, and then correct what needs to be corrected so that you can avoid that. Anyway, I got a little ways to go. You don't need to see the rest. You probably want to see the rest, but I don't really want to show it. I'd rather, you know, pick my nose and swear a lot. I can't do that while you're here. I mean, I can, but YouTube won't let me, you know, get famous, which clearly they've succeeded. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, hit them in the comment section. If you want, give one of these things, whichever. It's white gel coat. It's shiny. If you want, I'll let you see what this looks like. I think it looks pretty good, I'm guessing. Okay, fine. I'll let you just see it. I'm going to put you on pause while I turn on the little flashlight. All right, here you go. And you might see a little star right up around this vent and up under the gunnel. But everywhere else you should see just a little dot of light. That's what I'm looking for, a little dot of light. And the reflection isn't bad at all. Again, this is what we were starting with, and this is what we finished with. So I've got a little bit of ways to go. I've got to blend in a couple spots. Stopped right here. I'll probably just perfect this. I know this got hit before, but from this line up, I think everything needs to get a little bit of, maybe not Super Duty, but I know it's going to need some heavy cut and then some perfected. The reason I used Super Duty here was because it was so oxidized, because it sits flat. So it's a little bit more exposed to the sun than the rest of the boat, whereas this thing has a huge overhang, and it shaded this boat for a little bit. So while it has some scratches and scuffs, those should actually come out fairly easily with heavy cut, and it'll shine up really nice with perfected. Let's see if the other side's still looking good. Yeah, the other side's been done. So this was done about a month ago, and I'm surprised, actually I'm not, that it's still shiny. This side, a little bit more to go, and when we're all said and done, I'll strip it, clean it, give it one more inspection with a flashlight, and hopefully it'll still look like this. And if it does, I'll put a wax on it, let it sit for a while, probably an hour, maybe a half hour, just to let it kind of settle in, soak in, let the oils even out amongst the different panels of gel coat, and then I'll buff it off. You guys don't need to see that. You've seen me buff stuff off at least 200 times. If you haven't, check out my library, playlist Boats and Stuff. That's pretty much all it's about, boats and stuff. Less stuff than boats, I'll be honest. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers, have a great day, and glory to Ukraine. And just because the sun is kind of almost sort of out, All right, that's it.
Oh my god, that took literally forever. I lost an hour of my life, so did you. I'm so sorry.